Just as we brought you stories of American monsters in our last episode, now it's time to discover some of the legendary creatures and beasts that inhabit the murky places in the rest of the world. I'm your host, Leah.
I'm Phil.
And I'm Steve. Today, we explore stories about cryptids from around the world.
If you have an appetite for the strange and bizarre, then pull up a chair and grab a spoon for another intriguing serving of Remnant Stew. Remnant Stew is gluten-free, organic, made from all natural, free-range ingredients, and guaranteed to provide the recommended daily serving of curiosity.
Well, now, before we jump into those fabulous stories from around the world, let's take a look at the calendar, shall we? Gosh, we're almost through April. Can you believe it?
No.
April, this is 2022, just flying by like crazy. Well, today is Monday, April 25th. It is World Penguin Day.
Woo!
All right.
Let's hear it for the penguins.
All right.
World Penguin Day seeks to celebrate the aquatic flightless birds. Penguins are critical to their ecosystems as they serve as both predators and prey. They provide food for leopard seals while preying on fish such as squid and krill. Most penguins are monogamous. They pair off for life.
I didn't know that.
In fact, they have distinct calls which allow them to locate their mates in large groups. I wonder what that call sounds like. Phil, you got any idea? Yeah, I guess that would work. Let's get over here and sit on this egg for a while, probably, because I think that with many penguins, the female lays the eggs, but the male actually sits on the eggs.
I kind of like that. Like, she lays the eggs and she's like, I'm out of here. So that sound that you heard is actually our international cryptid in the studio.
Right.
Yeah, we found one. It's a real thing.
From Asia. There he is.
A rubber chicken made in China. Yeah. You can thank Phil for those noises and Dr. Meeker for bringing that in. Thank you.
I found him in
so
my
much.
classroom closet today, so who knows how long he's been lurking in there. But
He's
anyway.
not very dusty. I mean, it can't be that long.
Anyway, so happy World Penguin Day. Now for this next one, got a little music here. Let's see. Hear that? Oh, yes. I hear it now. Coming down the line today, this Friday, April 29th, is Duke Ellington Day.
Hey.
Nice.
Duke Ellington Day commemorates the life of jazz musician Edward Kennedy Ellington. Born April 29th, 1899 in Washington, D.C., Ellington was a famous American composer, pianist, and bandleader of jazz orchestra that performed at Harlem's Cotton Club during the 1920s. In the 1930s, his music spread internationally as he and his orchestra traveled throughout Europe. Ellington is considered to have elevated the status of jazz from mere music to an art form. Ellington's most popular recordings are one you're hearing right now, which is called Take the A-Train. Yeah, and there's another one, It Don't Mean a Thing If It Ain't Got That Swing.
Oh, yeah,
Nice.
I know that one.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much for that, and happy Duke Ellington Day. Be a good day to sit around and listen to some Duke Ellington I love big band music anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Duke Ellington and Glenn Miller.
Do you know my 14-year-old daughter, Tori, is really into that music. So we just came back from a trip, and that's all we listened to.
Oh, that's great.
Was big band? That's good.
It wasn't all big band. Some of it was, but it was jazz.
Yeah.
Yep.
And she is
Jazz
so
and big
into
band.
it. Mm-hmm.
Nice. Well, then next Saturday, May 7th, is near and dear to Leah's home state. It's Kentucky Derby Day.
Yay.
Bring on those hats again.
Uh-huh. The Kentucky Derby is one of the oldest horse races in the world. The race is a 1.25 miles long, or 1.25 mile, I guess we should say, known as the most exciting 2 minutes in sports. The race features 3-year-old thoroughbreds on a dirt track. It's held annually at Churchill Downs Racetrack in Louisville, Kentucky. Did I say that right?
Louisville.
Okay. Your old hometown. The Kentucky Derby, run on the first Saturday in May of every year, is the first leg of the elusive Triple Crown race. The race was first held in 1875. It's been around a long time then. Since then, the Derby has become a day of luxury and fashion that many celebrities often attend.
That's right.
And, of course, you don't want to forget next Sunday, May the 8th, which is Mother's Day.
That's right. Call your mom.
Right. Call your mom and tune in go to our website and look at last year. We did a really great episode called Hello, Mother. It's Season 2, Episode 9, and it's a great Mother's Day episode. So you can play that for Mom. You'll enjoy the day.
Like we said in the last episode, the word cryptid refers to a creature that is believed to exist without significant proof. The term has been widely used since the early 1980s, but sightings and claims of the unnatural have haunted the globe for centuries.
Long time, yeah.
All cultures, all peoples across the globe have folklore that is just full of creatures that are not quite human and not quite animal.
Kind of sound like your Uncle Bob, doesn't it?
I may resemble one of them, apparently.
I think you're going to resemble a couple of these cryptids, Phil. But they may be somewhere in between or may have supernatural powers that no human or animal possesses. Have you ever seen anything out there in the shadows that you couldn't quite explain?
Yeah, often it was tree stumps, but anyway.
So much of our information, I'm just going to cite it right here. A lot of our stories come from that wonderful site called Cryptids, with the Z at the end, fandom.com, and then it's a self-described cryptid wiki. So there you go.
Well, so we're going to break up the globe here by continents and by regions at least, and beginning with Latin America. And by Latin America, I'm referring to everything from Mexico and the Caribbean islands all the way to the southern tip of South America. From a terrific website called remezcla.com, Remezcla, and I looked it up. Remezcla actually means remix. Okay. We find a great article called 13 Terrifying, Spooky, and Awesome Latin American Horror Monsters and Legends.
I like that already.
All 13 are interesting, but we're going to narrow it down to just 3 here, and we'll begin with the Yacumama. Yeah, it's fun to say that the Yacumama, Yacumama.
Well, listen, with Mother's Day coming up, that's perfect.
There you go.
What you talking about my mama for?
We're yakking about you, mama. The legend of Yacumama comes from Peru and Ecuador. These mountainous countries contain the headwaters of the mighty Amazon River. The Yacumama is a horned, snake-like sea monster, believed to be the mother of all sea creatures. The Yacumama is part of multiple indigenous groups' mythology, primarily tribes hailing from the western Amazon in the hills and lowlands of Peru and Ecuador. According to various European colonizers, accounts from the 19th century of the Yacumama is rumored to be as long as 160 feet.
Wow.
All right.
Before entering unfamiliar bodies of water, indigenous tribes will blow a conch horn to warn the gigantic reptile of human presence.
Hey, we're coming in.
Will hopefully ward off attack. The Yacumama also appears further south in the country of Argentina. However, here it is also a goddess of the water, taking the form of an elderly human woman that approaches kids who enter the river to collect water in their canteens. The unsuspecting children would then be captured and their blood sucked out by the Yacumama. Now, for some strange reason, the people of Argentina have recently commissioned a postage stamp featuring the Yacumama. We have a picture of that, and we'll include it on our social media page, our Facebook page. So, happy Yacumama Day.
I think that's the biggest. At 160 feet, I think that's the biggest cryptid so far.
Maybe so. There's some other big ones on here.
Well, I say so far, like so far.
So far, okay.
So far of
We've
all
gotten through one right now.
I'm talking about like even
episode?
previous episode too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're growing bigger out there. Now we want to.
It's the Amazon. Everything's bigger.
Now we want to talk about El Culebron. That's Culebron. And there's not an English equivalent, I know, because I looked it up on Translator, and it says the Culebron. So
so it translated L to
right,
the.
L to the, but Culebron is just Culebron. Anyway, it's basically an anaconda on super steroids.
At least it's not LeBron James.
No.
Oh.
It's an enormous, hairy snake with a gigantic calf-like head.
Hairy snake. Oh, my God.
It's not related to the Yacumama.
No.
Oh, okay. It's on its own. Got it.
Different place. The creature belongs to the rural countryside of Chile, where it is said to come out at night from dark caves and remote forests and eat basically anything in its path. El Culebron also has a treasure radar. And is said to arrive at the sites of buried treasure 40 days after it's been buried. Hey, we should have had him on our treasure episode.
That's right.
A couple of months ago.
Go catch this and find Blackbeard's treasure.
That's right. Now, it's a pretty good trick, when you can find buried treasure, I would say. Anyone wishing to recover the treasure must douse the ground with a strong alcoholic beverage like schnapps in the hopes that the snake will get drunk off the liquor and let its guard down.
Did you add the schnapps in there, or was that in part of the? Because I'm thinking
there was a.
I think it'd be
no,
tequila.
I translated that.
It's translated. So Coolabron didn't, but schnapps did.
There was another word. I didn't write it down here, but it translated to schnapps. So pour some strong alcoholic drink on the ground and get the El Coolabron tipsy, and so then you might.
It doesn't want tequila; it wants schnapps.
Schnapps, yeah,
Got it.
Schnapps.
That's specific.
Funny. Hard to find in Chile, I think.
Yeah.
So. In the same way that El Coolabron is attracted to riches, legend also has it that the snake can draw wealth to anyone who is able to, quote, domesticate it. But trapping El Coolabron is no easy feat. You have to find one in the wild, pluck 3 of its longest hairs without getting eaten, then put the hairs in a bowl of milk. From that bowl, 3 baby Coolabron niños will spring to life, and the strongest will eat the other 2 and become a full-fledged El Coolabron. From that point forward, owners must maintain the snakes with sacrifices of animals or close relatives. Really, that's what it said. And leave the blood in a secret location that only the snake knows of. Otherwise, no money for you, and you'll probably get eaten.
That's an interesting legend. Wow.
3 hairs in a bowl of milk.
And 3 hairs in a bowl of milk.
And they just miraculously spring up.
They turn into little snakes, and the stronger one will eat the other 2, and then it becomes an El Coolabron itself. So that's how you domesticate it. But you got to be pretty careful around it.
But it'll still eat you if you don't keep feeding it.
Have a nasty disposition, those
relatives.
El Coolabron. Now, this one is one we have heard of here in Texas. We have a pretty strong Latin American culture as well.
Well, this one crosses the border from time to time.
Yeah. It kind of wanders around. It's El Chupacabra.
That Chupacabra.
El Chupacabra. Like a Latin American Bigfoot or Loch Ness Monster, El Chupacabra, literally goat sucker, is a beast whose alleged existence has plagued farmers and the collective Latin American consciousness for some time now. It's really not quite as old, though, as I thought. It's only first noted back to 1995.
Oh, really?
In Puerto Rico, on the island of Puerto Rico. Yeah. The first report of a Chupacabra attack was in March of 1995. Though some reports say they go back earlier than that. But in Puerto Rico, 8 sheep were killed and completely drained of blood, with 3 puncture wounds on each of their chests. Authorities attributed the killings to more conventional predators, but many locals suspected a satanic cult. By August, 150 similar livestock killings had taken place in Puerto Rico, and by the end of the year, the mysterious beast had been blamed for over 1,000. Descriptions of the creature varied wildly. In the town of, Canovanas, Canovanas, I guess, the creature was described as winged, swooping down on its prey. In Caguas, Caguas, it was said to have hairy arms and red eyes. Well, by the end of 1995, the most prevalent description was of a gray, alien-like creature about 3 to 4 feet tall that walks upright on its muscular hind legs. By 1996, reports of Chupacabra attacks were being reported on the mainland as well, beginning in Miami, and later in the southwest of the United States and in Mexico. Either the creature had migrated or the stories had become so popular that reports of the sightings and copycat attacks were being carried out there too. This time the creature was described as dog-like but reptilian, a reptile dog. Whether Chupacabra exists or not, reports of bloodless murdered livestock persist, and to date, no satisfactory predator has ever been caught. So Chupacabra may still be roaming out there.
Wow. Okay, so we have pictures of Chupacabra.
Chupacabra.
A lot of the times they're like animals that are dead, and people have taken pictures,
and claiming it.
And claiming that it's a Chupacabra, yeah.
Look what I got.
Okay, so I'm covering cryptids from Europe and Asia. Technically, the two are combined into one continent of Eurasia. However, they are considered their own individual continents because they are divided by various waterways, and each region is great in size and has its own distinct history and traditions, along with their own monsters. So I'm going to start off with Europe.
European cryptids. That sounds like fun.
And so, this one has been sighted in several areas in Europe, including Germany, Austria, Switzerland, Italy, and many places in the European Alps for hundreds of years, and have been called by many names, including Alps dragon, stolen worm, spring worm, Erassus, and I'm pretty sure this has nothing to do with pretzels. Pretzel worm.
Pretzel worm.
Because you'll tell
And
me
Here's
it's
some
not.
pretzel worm.
Bergenstutzen. It's most common.
Bergstutzen. Yeah, that sounds pretty
Bergstutzen?
bad. Yeah, Bergstutzen.
Its most common name, though, and the one we'll be calling it, is Totzelworm.
Pretzel worm.
So if you haven't caught that worm part,
I've noticed this is appearing in the yodeling countries.
Yes, that's right. It's all along the Alps. So, wherever the Alps is. So the Totzelworm is one of the most famous European cryptids, and it's from Tatze, which means paw or claw, and worm, which is worm. It has a feline-type head, 2 front legs with large claws, and the rest of its body resembles a snake.
Wow.
A lizard, or even a dragon. Some accounts report that it has spikes along its back and may be venomous, able to kill a human instantly with its bite. And to take it even further, some say that the Totzelworm breathes poisonous fumes and even has acid blood.
Ew,
so it's been
nasty
it's
thing.
been reported for. I think the longer something has been around,
The more extravagant.
yeah, the more
Right.
extravagant it gets. So the first reported sighting of the Totzelworm was in 1779 when a man named Hans Fuchs
Fuchs, yeah.
claimed that the creature jumped out in front of him, scaring him so badly that he had a fatal heart attack. But before he
Wait a
died...
minute. Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay,
Go.
look.
How did he claim it if it was fatal?
It
Come on,
wasn't.
Hans.
It wasn't instantly fatal,
Oh, I'm
guys.
sorry.
But before he died, he was able to describe his encounter with the beast. He said it was 5 to 7 feet long with a snake-like body, clawed front legs, and a large cat-like or feline-like head with sharp teeth.
Oh, okay.
Since that first encounter, the Totzelworm has been seen many times in the Alps, in Switzerland, Austria, and Italy. The creature built up quite a following of believers and was even considered to be fact in the 19th century.
I see.
An illustration of the Totzelworm even made its way into an 1836 Bavarian hunting manual and an 1841 Swiss almanac.
So if
Wow.
you see it, shoot it. Okay, that's
Wow.
what's in the hunting manual.
Yeah.
So the beast continued to be sighted down through the years, with some people claiming to have a carcass or a skeleton. The specimens and even the couple photos that were taken were proven to be hoaxes, but many of the first-hand sightings were deemed to be credible. In the summer of 1969, a man reported a 30-inch long animal with 2 hind legs, so this is a little different, near South Tyrol, Italy. It seemed to be like inflating its neck, I guess like some of the lizards do.
It wasn't a dachshund. No.
That's a big Dotson. Sightings continue even to this day. Many in Italy, where the local folks call the beast by the Italian name of basilisk.
Oh, okay.
So Harry Potter fans will know that one.
Stone.
Basilisk. Because there have been so many reportings and sightings that waned during the winter months and then have become sparser throughout the years, some scientists actually have speculated that the Totzelworm may have been an actual undiscovered reptile that hibernates in the winter and whose population, while always small, is now on the verge of extinction.
Oh, the Totzelworm. Okay. That was an interesting one.
We covered American monsters in our last episode, but deliberately did not cover Mothman of West Virginia because he's so well known, even by people not particularly interested in cryptids. This next monster is very similar to Mothman.
Okay.
Cornwall, a county in southwest England, has the Owlman.
Owlman.
This creature was first spotted by 2 young girls, and it was hovering menacingly above the Monon Church Tower in 1976.
Right.
They described the creature as being about the size of a man, but having the appearance of an owl. It had pointed ears, red eyes, and black pincher-like claws. And like Mothman, it has large grayish wings. The girls were the first to call it Owlman, and the name stuck. So sightings of the figure continued to be reported on the following day and again on 2 occasions 2 years later in June and August of 1978, all within that vicinity of the church, which is kind of weird.
The owl is attracted to the steeple or something.
Yeah, and so there was a sighting of the Owlman in 1989 by a young man and his girlfriend that said that the creature was gray and brown and had legs with high ankles and feet that were large and black with 2 huge toes. They said further that the eyes definitely glowed.
Wow.
And then again in 1995, a female tourist from Chicago wrote the Western Morning News in Truro, claiming to have seen a bird, quote, man bird with a ghastly face, a wide mouth, glowing eyes, and pointed ears, as well as clawed wings. And I have to take a moment and say that, listen, I've wondered if Mothman, and I'm getting out of picture here, if Mothman, and now that I know about him, the Owlman, if they're actual animals that have been released outside their usual habitat. So look at these pictures.
Caught and moved?
Well, no, look. Okay, so that top one is a harpy eagle, and then the bottom is a shoebill stork, which are not indigenous to those areas.
Right.
And so both are really large, intimidating, and kind of ugly birds. They have, and they each have uncanny human-like stares. I mean, it kind of looks like a man, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's my theory. That's what I always thought Mothman might be. That if somebody took one of these, okay, so the harpy eagle inhabits South America, can get over 3 feet tall with a wingspan of 7.5 feet.
Right.
Okay.
The shoebill is a water bird living in marshes and swamps of Central Africa, and it always looks incredibly angry. Like it's going to just
look happy.
Yeah, it's just going to eat your spleen.
Yeah.
And they can get
some indigestion problems or something.
They can get up to 4.5 feet tall. They're normally silent, but during
if you're
mating,
talking flight or at least hanging out on top of the church.
If you see one of those in the twilight, so that's my theory. That's my theory.
And he's just staring you down. He's like, what you going to do?
And either one of them would be absolutely terrifying in the dark.
I'm just looking at your notes here. You didn't say what he sounded like.
Well, okay, so the shoebill usually is very... Oh.
No. Not that.
Oh, not the right note?
Not the right
Stop
one.
it. I'm going to beat you with that chicken. The shoebill is usually pretty silent, but during the mating season, it makes a sound that people have compared to a machine gun.
No, that's a talented bird right there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and so anyway, just a suggestion. If you're a firm believer in Mothman or Owlman, don't come at me. I'm just throwing that idea out there.
It could be an actual bird.
That's right. I got my info from the cryptids.fandom.com and Wikipedia.
Well, kind of on that note, we're going to now hop across the Mediterranean Sea from Europe to the continent of Africa. And, the great continent of Africa is the second largest continent and home to nearly 1 billion people. It has vast deserts, steamy jungles, amazing mountains, and an unlimited number of cryptids.
It's just got about everything.
Yeah. Before we dive into African cryptids, though, we should point out, as we did in our North American cryptids episode, that numerous previously thought cryptids turned out to be actual animals.
That's right.
That's true.
So that could be what you're seeing there in that church tower in Cornwall. Early European explorers often looked down on Africa's rich culture and traditions, and thus often thought that reported sightings of strange animals were the figment of overactive imaginations. For example, according to Atlas Obscura, the mountain gorillas of Rwanda were considered by Europeans to be cryptids until, unfortunately, a German soldier named Robert von Behring shot one. The remains were taken back to Berlin, where it was identified as a new subspecies of gorilla. So a lot of the things that were thought to be cryptids turned out to be actual animals.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's a good website called Exemplore, Exemplore, and we learn about a cryptid from Africa called Nandi bears, Nandibears.
That sounds like a candy.
Yeah, not related to gummy bears.
Yeah.
Right. Sounds like something you would eat.
That doesn't sound scary.
It's not Care Bears, I'm taking it.
Well, Nandi bears have been seen all over the continent of Africa and is called different names depending on its location. Some of its names are Chimisit, Chimisite, Duba, carrot, and ngolka.
Okay, when you say carrot, it's...
K-E-R-I-T.
Yeah, not C-A-R-R-O-T.
What's up, Doc?
And then N-G-O-L-O-K-O, ngolko. There are no known members of the bear family living in Africa now. There was a species called the Atlas bear in the Atlas Mountains, but they went extinct in the 1700s. The Nandi bear is described as looking like a cross between a bear and a hyena. That sounds like a pretty nasty animal, doesn't it? It is about 4 to 6 feet tall. The coat ranges in color from a reddish brown to a dark, almost black. It leaves behind tracks that are almost 9 inches long, with 5 toes, and look distinctly canine. The creature is nocturnal and has been known to kill humans on moonless nights. Natives have burned down their own homes after trapping one inside.
Wow.
Okay, that's pretty extreme.
Do they taste good?
I
mean, that's a barbecue
living
at
in a
that
grass
point.
hut, I'm thinking that's probably, not your 3-bedroom ranch, but, it was a smaller grass variety. Westerners have also shot at it with no success. According to cryptidsfandom.com, a spate of sightings which introduced the Nandi bear to the wider world occurred during the construction of the Magadi Railway in British East Africa, that would be now known as the country of Kenya, but in 1912 and 1913. The most famous sightings was that reported by railway engineer G.W. Hicks on the 8th of March, 1913 at around 9 a.m. Traveling to Railhead via motor trolley, Hicks saw what he initially took to be a hyena. Quote, "It was almost on the rail line when I first saw it, and at that time it had already seen me and was making off at a right angle to the line. As I got closer to the animal, I saw it was not a hyena. At first, I saw it nearly broadside on. It then looked about as high as a lion. In color, it was tawny, about like a black-maned lion, with very shaggy long hair. It was short and thick-set in the body with high withers and had a short neck and stumpy nose. It did not turn to look at me, but loped off, running with its forelegs and both hind legs rising at the same time. Kind of like a horse, I guess. All of them in the air at once. As I got alongside it, it was about 40 or 50 yards away, and I noticed it was very broad across the rump. It had short ears. It had no tail that I could see, and its hind legs came out of the grass. I noticed the legs were very shaggy, right down to its feet, and that the feet seemed large. Sightings continued in...
Kind of like a bear.
Yeah, it certainly sounds like a bear and hyena combined. Sightings continued in Kenya for the next few years. It was reported that a man-eating Nandi bear struck in 1914 in a Kenyan village where it killed a 6-year-old girl.
Oh, wow.
So the British colonial administrator, William Hitchens, was dispatched to hunt the beast, and though he set up a perimeter around his tent, during the night, an animal with, quote, the most awful howl he ever heard, tore down the tent and carried off his dog, leaving behind enormous clawed tracks.
Wow.
Hitchens later wrote of the sheer demonic horror of the beast's howl. To date, no reliable specimen has been captured, nor have any remains been located.
Wow.
Nandi bears.
So it's interesting that the hyena, a lot, and some of these cryptids, like everybody, it's a hyena. It looks like a hyena. Like hyenas are like super weird looking to begin with,
Could be an off hyena cousin somewhere, perhaps. Now, we want to learn about the Trunco. Yeah, Trunco. Trunco.
Made by Mattel. Maybe.
Could be. Is the nickname of an animal reportedly sighted in Margate, South Africa on October 25th, 1924.
Not made by Mattel.
No.
Okay.
According to an article entitled, quote, "Fish like a polar bear." Not fish as in a verb, but fish as in a noun, meaning a fish like a polar bear.
Okay.
Published in the December 27th, 1924 edition of London's Daily Mail. The animal was reportedly seen off the coast battling 2 killer whales, which fought the unusual creature for 3 hours. There are a colony of killer whales that reside off the coast of South Africa, so that maybe it got mixed up with them. It used its tail to attack the whales and reportedly lifted itself out of the water as much as 20 feet. The creature reportedly washed up on Margate Beach, but despite being there for 10 days, no scientist ever investigated the carcass while it was beached. So no reliable description has been published. And until September 2010, It was assumed that no photographs of it had ever been published. But in that year, researcher Dr. Carl Schucker discovered 3 photographs that had been published in Wide World magazine in 1925. And we've got some of those photographs. We'll put them on our website. On our Facebook page. Some people who have not been identified were reported to have described the animal as possessing snowy white fur, an elephantine trunk, a lobster-like tail, and a carcass devoid of blood. While it was beached, the animal was measured by beachgoers and turned out to be 47 feet long, or 14 meters, 10 feet wide, or 3 meters, 5 feet, or 1.5 meters high, with the trunk's length being 5 feet. The trunk's diameter was 14 inches, or 13 centimeters. The tail, 10 feet, or 3 meters, and the fur being 8 inches long.
Wow.
So it actually had like polar bear fur, but it had a trunk like an elephant, but it came out of the ocean. It was a fish.
That's
washed up on the beach. The article from Wide World magazine in 1925, which accompanied the photos, states that a few hours previous to the sightings, a strong earthquake was felt near Margate, which was believed to have originated in the deep ocean. It was supposed that the quake might have jarred Trunco out of his deep-sea home. So,
there's all kinds of stuff down there that we have never seen.
Well, the light of day hasn't even gotten there.
That's right.
There's some very deep parts of the ocean and unusual creatures down there for sure.
And now for something completely off topic and off kilter. Brace yourself for the oddity du jour.
All right, let's take a little break from cryptids and talk about an unusual lady for our oddity today. Marion Stokes, Stokes, she was an unusual woman for sure. She worked as a librarian in Philadelphia for nearly 20 years, but was fired in the early 1960s, likely because of her work for the Communist Party. She and her first husband wasn't too popular at the time somehow. She and her first husband attempted to defect to Cuba, but that didn't work out either, and neither did the marriage. She ended up divorcing him. Later in the 60s, she started working in television. In fact, in 1968, she even hosted an early morning Sunday show in Philadelphia called Input. I can remember in that time there would always be these early morning shows on Sunday, local shows, interviewing local people. On this show, she would interview local political, community, and religious leaders and other local celebrities discussing the issues of the day. She wound up marrying John Stokes, the show's producer. Perhaps her experience in television sparked in her a desire to document all things television-related. In 1975, she purchased a Sony Betamax and began recording TV shows. She never stopped. Later, switching to VCRs as the Betamax played out. That's kind of an interesting story in of itself.
Didn't go anywhere, right?
Yeah. Betamax was first, but the VCR Sony didn't share that technology, and so
they weren't flexible with it. Yeah.
So VCRs supplemented the Betamax. Anyway, she switched to VCRs, and soon she had 3, 4, 5, and sometimes as many as 8 tapes spinning away at one time in her apartment, recording news broadcasts, commercials, and everything in between on multiple networks.
Wow.
She began collecting the videotapes in boxes, and she just kept right on recording.
That's an obsessive
hoarding.
Yeah,
right.
That's an obsessive hobby.
It lasted from 1975 until her death in 2012.
Wow, that's a lot of hours.
She filled up over 71,000 video cassettes with live television programming. She actually rented 9 vacant apartments to store all the boxes of tapes.
Oh, man.
Wow.
When asked how she managed to handle all the physical aspects of this undertaking, her son replied, quote, "We'd be out to dinner, and suddenly we had to rush home to change tapes."
Wow.
Now, you might be wondering how Marion was able to afford all of this. Well, it appears that she made a very substantial early investment in a little company called Apple.
Oh, wow.
Which paid back enormous dividends to her.
Absolutely, it does.
Now, like me, you might have assumed that television stations and networks had copies of everything that they ever broadcast.
No.
Nope.
That's not true. Studios were constantly erasing and recycling broadcast tapes in order to save money and free up storage space. So what's become of Marion's life's work? Well, the cassettes are sitting in boxes, stacked 50 to a pallet, in the Internet Archive's physical storage facility in Richmond, California, waiting to be digitized. The tapes are not in chronological order, or really in any order at all. They got a little jumbled up as they were being transferred. Although no one knew it at the time, the recordings Stokes made from 1975 until her death in 2012 are the only comprehensive collection preserving this period in television media history. Wow. Quote, "Our vision is really aligned with Marion's," says Roger McDonald, the director of the television archives of the Internet Archive. Quote, "It's a bold and ambitious goal to provide universal access to all knowledge. Now Stokes' work will be made publicly available on the Internet Archives, bit by bit, offering everyone the opportunity to examine history and perhaps to set the record straight." This information came from Atlas Obscura. There's one particularly channel, I don't get it at my house, but I get it when I go to the gym, called Buzzer. Have you ever seen Buzzer? Buzzr. It's a channel that shows old game shows, which I love game shows anyway.
I bet.
But what I also love about it is they also show the old commercials from the 50s.
Those game shows?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
From the 50s and 60s. And sometimes in those days, they actually did live commercials as part of the show, you know.
Oh, right.
Yeah, right now, we're going to hear from Stella, who's showing us this new dishwasher, or this new dishwashing liquid or something like that. And so they would have that in there, or sometimes it would even be the other commercials. And so, I remember in the 70s, when I got my first cassette recorder, I recorded some live radio so I could hear some of the music. And then I thought about going through and cutting out the commercials, but then many, many years later, I found them. And I like the commercials that were there better than the actual music.
Yeah, and it's neat to go back and look at commercials from your childhood or whatever.
Right, TV commercials are
okay, so that reminds me, I'm just going to throw this out here as just random. It reminds me of the story, the movie, the Disney movie Toy Story.
Oh, yes.
Was this story? It was nearly lost. They had a glitch and let me see, I'm looking at this this website. I'll tell you what the website is in a second. I have to look at it, but a simple accident deleted it from all the studio's servers.
Oh, my gosh.
They did lose it. They actually lost the whole thing. And can you imagine? Because that animation takes up so much.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, especially being one of the first long movies they created. Not just like little
completely
shorts.
by computer.
And so can you imagine being there that day and just like, you've worked. I mean, so many people have worked so many hours on this, and it's gone. It's just gone. And the panic and the person that hit delete or whatever. However, there was a woman animator she was a technical director, Galen Sussman. She'd been working from home on maternity leave.
Wow.
Had a copy of it on her. She had the only copy left on her computer.
Wow.
And she managed to bring it back.
She saved the day.
She saved the day. That's why we have Woody and Buzz.
I wonder if she named her kid Woody or Buzz.
Well, the kid was already born at that point. I think she was taking care of it. But I got that information from /film.com.
Nice.
So if they had what is this, Stokes? What is her name?
Marion
Stokes.
Yeah,
if they'd had her around, So
it's interesting, that that's nearly 40 years worth of television programming and commercials and, advertisements and news broadcasts, everything in multiple channels that she recorded.
I wonder what her motivation was, just to
I guess
to
she maybe
preserve
had
it?
a sense that somebody, it would be valuable to somebody someday,
the preservation of all of it, especially if she'd already been in broadcasting and stuff for a while before that.
I guess she kind of knew.
She probably already knew that they're reusing the tapes.
Right. And I remember hearing Dan Rather talk about one time he was working at the local Houston CBS station before he was in CBS Network, and he said he interviewed Lyndon Johnson at the 1960 convention, and the tape's been lost because they probably reused it to cover a house fire right after he got back.
Probably.
Hey, we just want to take a minute to ask all of you out there a favor.
If we've ever made you laugh or made you think or taught you something that you didn't know before, well, we are grateful for your participation by sharing our podcast with your friends, your family, your circle of contacts. It means a lot to us.
Anyone else will listen.
Anyone else that you think would enjoy learning and our style of podcast?
It would mean the absolute world to us. This is how we get new listeners, is by word of mouth.
That's
so
right.
We would so appreciate it.
Greatly appreciated. Thank you very much. We really appreciate all of our listeners. And if you really enjoy podcasts, here's another one that you might be interested in.
We know you enjoy intriguing and bizarre stories because you're listening to Remnant Stew. But have you ever considered writing your own fictional, weird short stories or novels? If so, we recommend the Reading and Writing podcast today to learn tips and tricks from the best-selling writers on how you can write your novel or short story. Listen to interviews with many best-selling writers like Dean Koontz, Sandra Brown, Delilah S. Dawson, Jeffrey Deaver, and many, many more. That's the Reading and Writing podcast. So all you have to do is search Reading and Writing podcast in your favorite podcast app today. There's more than 600 episodes featuring interviews with writers explaining how you can write the story or novel that you've always wanted to write.
All right, now let's get back to our international cryptids. This is such a fun topic. We're going now to the land down under, Australia, mate.
The land where everything will kill you. Like all the monsters, the snakes, the spiders, everything.
But you remember
and those are the ones that they found and can show you.
Kangaroos are freaky.
Oh, they're
freaky.
Boxers, kickboxers, yeah, that's what they'll do. But you remember our one episode we had not too long ago that we found the most dangerous animal was horses down there. More people die because of horses.
That's right.
Right.
Anyway, as mentioned on our last show, numerous animals such as kangaroos and platypuses were once thought to be cryptids. Of course, subsequent exploration has proven the actual existence of these interesting animals. From Gizmodo.com, we find a terrific article written by a talented journalist named Leah Williams. It's called Your Field Guide to Australia's Local Cryptid Population. Yes, the land down under has a wide range of cryptids as well as a large number of documented dangerous creatures. Many of these cryptids derive from stories of the Aboriginal people, but recent sightings are also quite common. Now, the first one is called the bunyip. That's right, the Bunyip. It sounds like something you might have
but when you see
growing
it
on your foot.
Spelled out. When you see it spelled out, you think maybe jackrabbit?
Oh, yeah, because it kind of looks like bunny.
Bunyip. No, it's
bunyip.
Bunyip originated in indigenous Australian folklore, and it was believed to be a kind of water spirit that infested lakes and other bodies of water. Like many famous cryptids, the bunyip's hobbies are said to be screaming loudly at passersby and eating people.
Yo, don't step in my water!
Sightings were most common between the 1840s and 1850s and were well documented in Victoria and South Australia. In 1845, a report in the Geelong Observer, that's a town, Geelong, and Observer is the newspaper, described several encounters with bunyips, including one that ended in a broken arm and another that ended in death. It also contained the following description, quote, "The bunyip, then, is represented as uniting the characteristics of a bird and an alligator. It has a head resembling an emu with a long bill, at the extremity of which is a transverse projection on each side with serrated edges like the bone of a stingray." Now, that's a bad-looking bird.
Yes.
You got like a serrated steak knife coming out of both sides of your mouth.
Definitely a dinosaur.
Like fish hooks, yeah. Its body and legs partake of the nature of the alligator. The hind legs are remarkably thick and strong, and the forelegs are much longer but still of great strength. When in the water, it swims like a frog, and when on shore, it walks on its hind legs with its head erect, in which position it measures 12 or 13 feet in height.
Oh, wow, that's big.
That's a big bunyip. While bunyip sightings have lulled in the years since, whispers of their existence still persist in many circles. An internet site called Mysterious Universe identified a possible recent sighting in a 2019 video that has since been pulled from the internet. Conspiracy, I say yes. Yeah. The missing video was allegedly shot in Western Australia outback and the creature supposedly ate a horse before the footage was shot. So you see, supposedly, the bunyip is probably real and might have eaten a horse or maybe a rabbit. But it's all on tape. Tape that is mysteriously missing, but so what?
So I had heard about the bunyip. And the reason I heard about it is because on the internet, there's several people that were scarred as children from watching a movie called Dot and the Kangaroo. And in that movie, there is a feature where the bunyip is coming after her, and it terrified kids. And you can look it up on YouTube. Look up Dot and the Kangaroo, the bunyip portion, and it's pretty freaky.
Well, that's not Slim Shady. That's not one of his songs. No, I mean Slim Dusty, the great Australian folk singer.
Right, yeah.
Slim Dusty is one I was thinking about. Slim Shady is somebody else. Slim Shady is somebody else. Slim Dusty.
We're just throwing culture around all over the place.
Well, anyway, let's on to the next Australian cryptid, shall we?
We're still trying to decide if there is a culture here. I
think this one has a great name. The Yowie. Yowie. Yowie.
Does it sound like this?
I don't know. For all intents and purposes, is the Australian version of Bigfoot or the Yeti, a large, hairy man-thing that patrols the Australian outback. Sometimes it sits and minds its own business. Other times, you guessed it, it eats people.
Of course, why not?
Like the bunyip, the Yowie originated from Australia's indigenous folklore. It's alternatively known as a quinklin, and is more commonly sighted on Australia's east coast. While the Yowie myth became widely spread in the 1800s, sightings of the Yowie occur frequently with several prominent incidents. The Australian bush is a large place, so the next time you visit, watch out for giant footprints and an incredibly hairy man. It might be your neighbor Gary, or it could be something far more sinister. You got a neighbor named Gary?
It could be Phil.
Yeah, it could be Phil. I don't mean to alarm you, but there have been Yowie reports as recently as July 19, 2020, claiming that the creatures have been stalking the Gold Coast, which is just south of Brisbane in Queensland. So if you live there, you might want to move. Yowie.
Or get a real photo, not those blurry things. I mean, your iPhones take great photos. Come on, people.
Okay, but now our next one, we do have a legitimate untouched photo.
Undocumented photo. No, it's documented.
Documented. It is a documented. Let me just get into it. How about that? Called the Hook Island Monster. Speaking of Queensland, Hook Island is located off the northeast coast in the state near the Great Barrier Reef. It is also home to a huge fish or giant tadpole-like thing, according to local legend. There was a very convincing photograph taken by Robert Le Surec in the 1960s. As the story goes, Surec was out fishing in the Stonehaven Bay when his wife noticed a strange, dark shape in the water. It was said to be at least 20 meters long and completely horrifying looking. But still, Surec ventured up to snap a picture of it and presumably poke a stick at it.
Yeah, let's just poke it. It doesn't eat humans yet.
When he got closer, the thing moved and tried to eat him and his companion, according to his account in the Australia Everyone magazine. Surec was a professional photographer, and given this was back in the days before deepfakes and Photoshop, it is considered to be a valid photo. The images were spread widely around the globe and never proven to be false. We have that image also, and it does look like an enormous tadpole shape in the water. And given the presence of such gigantor creatures as the giant squid, it's not hard to stretch the imagination to accommodate a giant tadpole. These creatures may not exist. They could just be the stuff of myth and legend, but nobody has proved definitely that they're not out there. So if you find yourself in the Australian outback, the Australian Ocean, or literally anywhere in Australia, stay safe, stay vigilant, and stay calm, and be on the safe side. Keep your toes out of the water.
Get your camera ready. Really?
Yeah, have your camera ready. Okay, so our last continent to cover is Asia, the largest continent and home to many fantastic creatures, both mythical and real, as well as some that live somewhere in between.
I guess we should point out we didn't find any Antarctic cryptids.
No, we didn't. Probably not because they're not there, but because people aren't there to see them.
They're well hidden.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
So the Sigbin is a creature from the mythology and lore of the Philippines.
Okay.
It's said to be nocturnal, coming out only at night to suck the blood of its victims. We hadn't had one of those yet.
Chupacabra.
Chupacabra did that.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. It is a bloodsucker.
Yeah.
It supposedly...
It is the bloodsucker.
The bloodsucker. Okay, Sigbin supposedly walks backwards with its head lowered between its hind legs to watch where it's going. I don't know.
He's stuck in reverse? Poor guy.
It can
No wonder he's
become...
going to eat people.
It can become invisible at will, but otherwise looks like a hornless goat with large ears that... Listen, it can clap together like a pair of hands.
He can clap his ears together like a pair of hands.
He can applaud.
That's a good one.
It has a long, flexible tail that can be used as a whip.
That's a good trick.
The Sigbin is said to be incredibly stinky, emitting an odor that will make you very sick. Legend has it that the Sigbin will emerge from its lair during Holy Week to go hunting for children. It will use the children's hearts to create amulets.
Ooh.
There are stories. So Asia is just full of lore and legend, and they, So this is one of theirs. There are stories that certain wealthy and powerful people called Sigbinen possess the power to control the Sigbin, and they keep them in clay jars as pets.
Wow.
Some speculate
it's a big clay jar.
That reminds me of that mermaid episode we had.
Some speculate that the legend of the Sigbin is related to the sightings of actual animals that are rarely seen, perhaps a species of kangaroo. With the recent discovery in the island of Borneo of the cat fox, a potential new species of carnivore described as having hind legs that are longer than its front legs, kind of like a hyena.
Yeah.
It has been postulated that reported sightings of Sigbin may actually be sightings of a member or relative of the cat fox species.
Let's go back to that beginning. It's supposed to, it walks backwards with its head lowered between its hind legs to watch where it's going?
I think that there have been reported sightings of something, and then the legend and the lore just grew from it.
Yeah.
Because if you look at a lot of
it walks backwards with its head between its legs. See where it's going. That sounds awesome. Yeah, we got to put that in the legend.
It would be upside down.
If you're just trying to, if you're looking at, I don't know, if you've ever looked at something and tried to figure out what in the world you're seeing, sometimes, humans aren't the best at describing,
What are you saying? We're ocularly impaired as I adjust my glasses?
Yeah. Okay. And I'm saying that Asia is just, they are chock full of interesting and cool stories and legends. So this next one, the Tsuchi Noko, it's a venomous snake-like creature that haunts the mountainous regions of western Japan.
Okay.
Sightings date back more than 1,400 years.
Wow.
So this one's really well established.
Been there a long time.
And it's generally described as being approximately 3 feet long. This is like one of the least scary ones because it's not very big, even though it's been around that long. And usually, like fish stories, they get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah, bigger and
this
bigger.
one's only about 3 feet long with a thick middle section. So it looks like a snake, but a really fat in the middle snake.
So he's pudgy.
Yeah, he's pudgy. The creature inhabits the watery caves of Shikoku and Honshu and swims in the rivers. It has large plate-like scales, a black tongue, and small horns growing out the sides of its head. Oh. Okay, I'm going to try saying it again. The Tsuchi Noko, whose name means child of dirt, has been reported to be able to leap more than its body length and actually even leap up 3 feet and then leap again.
Oh, double jump.
Yeah, double jump in the air.
From the air. Wow.
Yeah, and has the ability to make all kinds of noises from the squeak of a mouse to even mimicking a human voice.
Ooh.
Wow.
One legend says...
critter.
Yeah, one legend says that the Tsuchi Noko can bite its own tail so that it forms a circle. It does this in order to roll down a hill at high speeds when chasing prey. Now listen, that's not unheard of,
That's a good trick
right
there, man.
Well, wait, have you? Okay, but it's similar to the Ouroboros in Greek mythology. So it's like a circle snake, and stories of the hoop snake in America and Canada. Have you never heard of that?
Yeah.
There's been illustrations in old books and stuff of the hoop snake where it bites its tail and it rolls down like a hula hoop.
It's a better wheel than somebody can invent.
Nice.
So some of the wilder stories centered around the Tsuchinoko is that it can talk.
Oh.
But it's not to be trusted. It also lies a lot.
Yeah, you can't
It's
trust
a
that snake.
And
Snake, after all, who's going to trust it to tell the truth?
and like which one of your cryptids liked alcohol, like schnapps?
Yeah, that was the.
Yeah, which one was it?
Kulebron, the Kulebron.
No, it
Kulebron.
was
Kulebron.
Kulebron, yeah.
That's
El
it.
Kulebron.
Well, the Tsuchinoko likes the taste of alcohol. So if you're being chased by one,
Give
it's
it a
rolling
hit.
down the hill. Yeah.
Schnapps.
But
Remember,
now in
always
Japan-
carry schnapps.
And sake in Japan, you want
Right.
some sake.
No, I don't know. It might like schnapps,
You
just
never
like
know,
the
'cause
other.
you
It's
can't
less
get it very
regional.
easy. Might as well get schnapps.
Okay, so in 2001, so as recently as 2001, the town of Makata claimed to have captured a Tsuchinoko.
Oh.
Ooh.
They put the animal on display. It was a meter long with a black body and a black tongue. The town declined, though, to do any scientific testing to confirm its identity, saying it needed to rest.
Yeah, could be a cardboard cutout too. So.
So I think maybe that town was just wanting tourists.
Made out
Yeah.
of clay?
But and the reason I say that is because there's rewards out there for capturing one of these.
Oh, no doubt.
Okay, sure.
And so you could travel to Japan to hunt for one of those yourself. The Tsuchinoko. There's you could
Tsuchinoko.
you could get rich doing that. And I found my information on this one at thoughtcatalog.com.
But remember, don't run downhill because he'll bite his own tail.
That's right.
He'll chase you.
He'll
Stay
chase
on
you.
the high ground.
Right. Stay higher than
Stay on level ground anyway. Yeah.
Okay, so now we travel to Southeast Asia to discover a small cryptid of Indonesia. The Ibu Gogo are short and hairy humanoid creatures around 3 feet in height.
I think I saw that discotheque back in the '60s. The Ibu Go-Go.
The Ibu Gogo. Very funny. They're hairy humanoid creatures around 3 feet in height and big guts. and they've been cited by the locals since ancient times. They feature very heavily in the local folklore. And the
Do
native
they live in grass huts in the middle of the hills?
No, I'm going to tell you where they live.
Okay.
In the native language, the term Ibu Gogo means grandmother who eats anything.
Wow.
And they
Well, we can go all kinds of directions with that one.
And they think that maybe that's possibly a colloquialism just meaning a glutton.
Mm-hmm.
They're said to have their own language but are able to mimic human words much like a parrot would.
I see.
Okay, so the locals believe the Ibu Gogo were alive as late as the 17th century, with some surviving into the 20th century, but are now no longer seen.
Uh-huh.
According to legend, humans and the Ibu Gogo lived in peace with each other for a time, but the Ibu Gogo started killing off livestock and crops and became a nuisance, so then people started killing them. Then the Ibu Gogo fled to caves where they continued to live, all while coming out and stealing food from the humans. Then after the kidnapping of a baby, the local people disposed of the Ibu Gogo by tricking them into accepting gifts of palm fiber to make clothes. And when they took the fiber into their caves, the villagers threw in fire and to set it all ablaze and put them all to death. The story goes that all the occupants were killed except for maybe one or two who fled off into the deepest forest, whose descendants may be living there still. Now listen, some legends have said that the Ibu Gogo were cannibals. This is one cryptid, though, that actually may be rooted in fact. There is some archaeological evidence that a small humanoid species may have lived in that area at one time.
Wow, interesting.
Interesting.
And I got that information from thoughtcatalog.com and Wikipedia.
And now it's time, boys and girls, for the Trivia Challenge.
Well, you know how this... Wait, what are we doing here?
We're answering a question.
almost done.
That's not a
Pull it
Trivia
question.
challenge. That's right. Trivia challenge. You know how this trivia challenge works. Like and follow our Facebook page at Remnant Stew Podcast. Like and share this episode. Put your answer to the trivia challenge question in the comments of that post. The first person to do all that will be the winner and will be mentioned in an upcoming episode of Remnant Stew. So what's our question today, Leah?
Okay, so this singular creature reportedly lives on the Isle of Man and was known for being quite loquacious and clever. Name that cryptid.
Name that cryptid. That's a good one.
All right, folks, remember to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Remnant Stew Podcast. Remember to email us any suggestions that you want to hear later in another episode at staycurious@remnantstew.com.
Oh, we like hearing your suggestions.
Bring them.
We've made some episodes from people's suggestions.
Remnant Stew is created by me, Leah Lamp. Dr. Stephen Meeker and I research, write, and host each episode along with commentary by our audio producer, Philip Sinquefield.
Some of it's not good. You're welcome.
You make us sound great, Phil. Come on.
Theme music is by Kevin MacLeod with voiceover by Morgan Hughes. Special thanks to Judy Meeker and Harbin Gold.
Now, before you go, please hit the follow button so you won't miss an episode. Head over to Apple Music and leave us a review. We love seeing those reviews. Share Remnant Stew with your friends, family, and your crazy cousins in the old country. Until next time, remember to choose to be kind and always stay curious.